Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo, and this is 3 Buck Theater. And today we're going to be talking about Sony doing a sequel to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And it is not The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest or The Girl Who Played with Fire. It's one, I forget which one is a direct sequel, but either way, like, they're good books. They're good. I've read them. I really like the character of Lisbeth Salander and Mikhail Blomkvist, and I loved the David Fincher adaptation from 2011, I believe. But I'm really surprised that they're doing this, even though this isn't technically new news. Now we just have confirmation of it. So it says here, Sony Pictures' The Girl in the Spider's Web, the sequel to the Oscar-nominated The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, will debut in theaters October 5th, 2018. So we've got full-blown year and a half until the thing's coming out. Fede Alvarez, the director of Don't Breathe, will helm the film, which will feature a brand new cast. And that is kind of the big news here, that and the release date. So back in mid-November of last year, they talked about this, and I think, to be fair, at the time, a lot of people were really talking about the election. The election was kind of everywhere, and so some movie news did slip through the cracks, at least for me. But Fede Alvarez also directed 2013's extremely awesome Evil Dead reboot, which I am glad they didn't continue that into a franchise and that it did kind of transition itself into Ash vs. Evil Dead, because that is a sublime pleasure of mine and I enjoy watching the hell out of that. But I haven't seen Don't Breathe. I saw the trailer. It looked fucking amazing, and it's intense. This dude can do intense, which makes me really question what's going to happen with The Girl in the Spider's Web. So if you go back and you watch David Fincher's A Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, there are some insanely intense moments in that film, and the book very much had those insanely intense moments as well. The book was hardcore fucked up. I believe the original translation for it was Men Who Hate Women, which, very much considering the villains of that story, it's easy to tell, especially with what happened with Lisbeth and the social worker. Dear God, that scene's insane. But it goes on to say here that Stephen Knight and Alvarez with Jay Basu penned the script. Scott Rudin, some people who have, I'm assuming, Swedish names that I can't pronounce, are going to be producing, as well as Amy Pascal. Ooh. Okay, but the exec producers are going to be, David Fincher's going to be on board with that, so that's good. But see, okay, but the exec producers don't always have the most hands-on interaction. They kind of pave the way for the film to be made in some respects, kind of like Tim Burton being executive producer on the animated film 9 from 2009. If you ask him about it, he'll literally just say, all I did is make some phone calls, which he heavily repeated at Comic-Con while promoting the film, because a lot of people there thought that Tim Burton had directed it. He was like, no, I just made some phone calls. It's very similar to Tim Burton in The Nightmare Before Christmas. A lot of people think that Tim Burton directed it. No, I think it was Peter Selleck did, or Henry Selick did. So again, Tim Burton producing things, but sometimes people can conflate those as being the same thing. But Amy Pascal, after the whole situation involving the Maid Marian movie and everything with Ghostbusters, I don't know. I want her to stay as far away from this as humanly possible. It says that the book will be the first in the best-selling series to be produced into an English-language film in its initial adaptation. The previous books in the series have been adapted into Swedish-language films. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was a remake of the Swedish film, but became a global hit for Columbia Pictures, taking in over $230 million worldwide. I've always been curious why they never made the direct sequel to that. If it made $230 million worldwide, that's kind of odd, okay? But let's take a look over here at Box Office Mojo real quick. So we can see that the total domestic gross for the film was $102 million, and its worldwide gross was another $130 million, so bringing it to $232 million. It had a production budget of $90 million. So it made, it made like 2.5 times its production budget, but that probably isn't enough for Sony to warrant making the direct sequel with the actors, probably because their salaries were too high. It wasn't like the movie was shot in a very bustling place. They literally shot it. I do believe they shot it on the same island where they shot the original adaptation with Noomi Rapace. So I don't know about that, but this is going to be the direct sequel. They're skipping over the next two books, which I understand. They were good books, but they weren't as compelling or riveting as the first one. So we'll have to see what happens with that. It says the announcement was made Monday at the London Book Fair during a celebration for the 5th Millennium book launch. Also by Lagerkrantz, because he's been continuing Stieg Larsson's franchise. Sony Columbia Pictures retains the rights to all future Millennium series books, and obviously they want to pull in a return on this investment. I mean, to be fair, they rebooted Ghostbusters, and it had, it did not have that good of a return on everything, even though they've owned it since the 80s. $90 million production budget for fucking The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and probably the bulk majority of that went to the salaries of the people involved. They can say 2.5 times earned back, whereas Ghostbusters did not. So it says here in a statement, in all contemporary literature, Lisbeth Salander is completely sui generis. I don't know, sui generis. I think it's French. I'm going to skip it. Probably one of the greatest female literary characters of all time, in my view. Modern punk defiance personified. She is unforgettable in every incarnation, truly one of the most compelling characters we've seen in recent years. This is coming from Sanford Panitch, president of Columbia Pictures. Let's see. David Lagerkrantz' brilliant work in continuing this remarkable series honored Stieg Larsson's masterpiece. We at Sony are so honored to be a part of this series with Yellowbird, and we're so excited to be making an original film of the girl in the spider's web. Fede Alvarez is the perfect choice to direct. Fede is an amazing director with a unique vision of the world. In particular, his talent and skill in creating psychological intensity will bring Lisbeth Salander back into popular culture with a roar. But Rooney Mara here did a great job in the role. Noomi Rapace did a great job in the role. It's not like Rooney Mara is doing much right now. I don't understand why they're just not going to cast her, and it's probably just brand confusion. They did the first one. It came out a long time ago. I want to say 2011 is when it came out, right? It's either 2011 or 2012. But that's the whole issue here. It's like, it was a long time. It was 2011. It was a long time ago. It's been almost 6 years. By the time this movie comes out, it will be close to 7 years. So switching up the core cast does make sense, right? And it's not like anyone else that was in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is going to be coming back into the play. Like, none of the other characters from that book. Maybe it's the hackers, but they weren't given a lot of fucking screen time anyway. So there was that. But anyway, I'm very curious to see what happens with this. I do love the series, the Millennium books. And I like the characters, and I like to see what comes next. I do believe that Fede Alvarez is a very good and competent director to tackle. If it goes as dark as A Girl with the Dragon Tattoo did, then he should be able to really kind of craft something brilliantly and just kind of, I guess you could say, like, seductively violent, because this does have a lot to do with sexual violence and sexual energy. I mean, if you look at the movie, how many times did they fuck, and was she naked and everything else? So there's a lot to do with that. And the other books continue that mindset as well. And so basically these are very sexual stories, very mature, very adult. And I think done kind of with maybe a thriller-esque mentality could definitely be very good. I'd also, I'm just throwing this the fuck out there, if Sony's going to continue down this path of kind of erotic fiction or erotic thriller fiction, might I recommend Paul Verhoeven as a potential follow-up director for whatever book comes next? Because let's face it, Basic Instinct is still one of the best erotic thrillers out there. No one ever talks about its sequel because it was goddamn dog shit, but the first one was fucking amazing, and Verhoeven needs to make a comeback anyway. It's been far too fucking long. But these are just my thoughts about this. What are yours? Do you guys want to see The Girl in the Spider's Web in next year when it comes out? Who do you want to play, Lisbeth Salander, or who do you think would be good to play? It's probably, if I'm gonna guess it, it's the girl from Don't Breathe and from Evil Dead, Jane something or another. I forget her name right now, but she's probably going to be who plays plays her. Because she's been a frequent collaborator with Fede Alvarez and he knows what he can get from her. I am pretty positive if she is open to that kind of sexuality exploration in a role, it's entirely possible that's what's going to happen. And I'm just making that call now. But anyway, yeah, let me know in the comments below. My name is Matt Jarbo. This has been 3 Buck Theater. If you haven't already, thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel. Check back often for more movie news and commentary from me. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day, and peace out.